Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with 5 musical discoveries that blew my mind. I'm talking about a specific period in the life of a record collector and a classical music enthusiast. You've done the basics. You know the symphonies of Beethoven and Brahms, Mozart. You've dabbled in Bach and Handel, some Vivaldi. You know Tchaikovsky and Dvořák and Rachmaninoff. But, these composers wrote a lot more music than we usually hear. And, initially, you do the popular stuff first because, well, that's what's out there. That's what people recommend. But then you're out on your own and you're exploring the universe. And you come across works either by composers who you know or by composers you may have heard of but hadn't heard before or who are completely unfamiliar to you. And you listen to something and it just rocks your world. And I have to say, I have great nostalgia for that. I think this is actually even a better time than just getting started because you have a certain level of musical sophistication. You know what you're listening to, and you know how different it is from all of the other stuff that you're already comfortable hearing. And it was such a wonderful time. And, as we get older and we get more and more and more knowledgeable, it becomes harder and harder to recapture that feeling of new with knowledge, of knowing something about classical music, of knowing something about how it operates, and understanding how these other works are spectacularly fresh while part of that tradition. It's an amazing feeling. It's indescribable. And here are 5 of those works that just blew my mind when I first heard them. And I'd like to hear 5 of yours that you discovered once you got a little bit familiar with the terrain and that just turned you into a quivering heap. I want to hear your heap quiver. So here we go. You ready? First, Rachmaninoff's Symphonic Dances. Now, this piece is ubiquitous today. It really is. But back in the 1960s and 70s, it was barely known, seldom acknowledged, not given a lot of credit for being the great work that it is. And, my favorite Rachmaninoff piece was always the Paganini Rhapsody, because I thought that was a work that had a certain modernity about it, a certain sharpness of outline and focus. Whereas his previous music was kind of like, for me anyway, sort of like Tchaikovsky, only more so, just sort of gloomy and dark and hyper emotional. And I mean, those are all good qualities, I suppose. But the Paganini Rhapsody was moving in a more modern direction, and the Symphonic Dances took it to the next level. I mean, there's the influence of Prokofiev and other sort of modern Russian composers is far more evident in this work. The orchestral writing has a clarity, almost a hardness to it that contrasts so marvelously with the basic romantic stuff. I mean, it's recognizably Rachmaninoff. You've got the Russian chants, you've got the Dies Irae all over the place, you've got the quotation from his first symphony, but it's all done in a different sort of aesthetic, at least timbrally, and it just absolutely blew my mind. I loved it. It was Andre Previn's recording, by the way, with the London Symphony Orchestra, which was new at the time. And I just thought it was astonishing. And since then, of course, everybody's piled on and made their own recordings of it. But back then, it was something to discover. So there's that. Next, Dvořák, the Piano Trio number 3 in F minor, which I think is like the greatest piano trio of the entire 19th century, at least in classical form. The only thing that betters it in a totally different way is the Dumke Trio. So, which everybody was listening to and thought was just delightful. But I didn't realize that Dvořák had written 4 piano trios. I hadn't paid much attention to his chamber music other than the American Quartet. I was never interested in as much in chamber music as I was big flashy orchestral stuff when I was just starting out. But a friend of mine and it worked in a record store, of course, had the Denon digital Sook trio set of the complete Dvořák piano trios. And you said, you really ought to listen to the trio in F minor. It's really something. And I put it on, and blammo, I was hooked. I was hooked on it for months, just listening to it constantly. Now I listen to it a little less constantly, but it's still part of me. And what a gorgeous work it is. The tunes are amazing. The forms are perfectly worked out. And it's just affecting and intense and stunningly beautiful. And it's one of those pieces where if you are not necessarily a chamber music person, listen to this, because it has all of the sweep and grandeur of a great symphony, just for smaller forces. It never sounds thin. It never sounds as though something needs to be added. It's not bigger than its small forces, warrant in terms of sound, in terms of sonority, but it has a fullness and a melodic opulence, which is absolutely second to none in the entire repertoire. It was just a staggering discovery. And after that, I was far, far more interested and open to chamber music of all kinds by everybody else. So there you go. I mean, that's what can happen when you find one of those keystone pieces that somehow makes you pay attention to an entirely new means of expression in a different medium. So there's that. Then, number 3, Ravel, the Mother Goose ballet, the complete ballet. Oh, I remember exactly where I was when I first heard this. I was a member of the International Preview Society. Remember that? The record club. We've talked about it a little bit before. And one of the things they had as their, set of the month, they used to give box sets that they licensed primarily from Universal, was the complete Ravel orchestral music with Seiji Ozawa and the Boston Symphony, which has a gorgeous, absolutely scintillating performance of this ballet. Now, I knew Bolero, I knew La Valse, I knew a bunch of Ravel things. I knew the Dead Pavane for a Princess. I knew all kinds of stuff. Daphnis and Chloe, which I always enjoyed. I had no idea this thing existed. And I put it on, and whoa! It was like encountering another dimension. The piece is absolutely magical. It has the most incredible scoring for a tiny chamber orchestra that Ravel makes. I don't know, he just makes magic happen. Every single note is absolutely beautiful. Yes, Finster, come here. Come on. You want to come up or you want to sit down? Okay, good girl. She's going to run it in front of us, of course, and stomp on this. Come here. God, good girl. There, come up later. So anyway, yes, Mother Goose, unbelievable. And the closing apotheosis, the fairy garden. Wow. Has there ever been anything more beautifully written for a small string section? More sonorous, more, oh gosh, I can't even describe it. It just takes you to another world. And it's just incredible. Then Baroque stuff. Baroque stuff always irritated me when I was starting out. I had the Brandenburg concertos, I had the Four Seasons, I had the water music, I had the usual culprits. I had Handel's Messiah, I had Bach's Magnificat, the B minor Mass. I mean, the basics. But all of that, chugga, 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 chugga with a harpsichord continuo behind it, I found it somewhat exhausting and relentless. I enjoyed those works that I enjoyed, but I wasn't impelled to go far beyond them. And then somehow, I don't remember exactly how it happened. I read a review, actually, of Zelenka. It was the Capricci, the Thomas Fury Camerata Baron recordings on Archive. And I grabbed those, and I thought, this music's really interesting. Because Zelenka had a very distinctive voice and melodic profile. Whereas, we like to say, it's Baroque, it all sounds the same. I mean, it doesn't really. Of course it doesn't. I mean, they don't all sound the same. But because the medium, the method was the same, there is a similarity between one thing and another. But with Zelenka, his personal elements were stronger than the common elements that united all of the Baroque repertoire. And so I knew his orchestral pieces, and I knew the trio sonatas, which were also very interesting and amazing in terms of like how they play that much stuff in one breath. I mean, it was like insane. But I didn't know his choral works. And so I grabbed this piece because it was short, the Missa dei Filii. It's a Lutheran mass, actually. I mean, it's a Protestant mass, which no one knows why Zelenka wrote it the way he did. But it consists, because he was Catholic, but consists only of a Kyrie and a Gloria, just the two movements. Even so, it's about 35 minutes long. I mean, it's not tiny. It's one of his, last Missae Ultimae, his last masses. So it's on a big scale. But it was incredible, especially that Gloria. The Gloria is insane. It has, first of all, as usual with Zelenka, phrasing in prime numbers, so you never know where it's going. Syncopated rhythms all over the place. It's got a Gregorian chant in the middle of it that's integrated into the fabric of the opening ritornello. Yes, I'm not kidding. And it's got a payoff, a musical payoff. It sounds like Gollywog's Cakewalk. Da da ba dum bum ba da 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 dun dun da 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 da. Yeah, I'm not kidding. And it's perfectly formed because the opening comes back at the end, and it is so catchy and so different from anything else anybody wrote. It absolutely slew me. I thought it was unbelievably, incredibly fabulous, and I still do. It still has all of that personality and character. So yes, Zelenka's Missa dei Filii, and after that I was totally hooked on Zelenka's choral music. And again, there wasn't very much in those days. There were 2 or 3 mass settings, and that was it. Now you can get like almost all. He did 20 some odd that we have. Now you can get almost all of them. It's incredible. So go out and grab that and give it a listen. It'll rock your world. And last but not least, oh boy, Janáček's Sinfonietta. First of all, the title is so deceptive. Sinfonietta, little tiny symphony, cute little charming thing. Well, the piece is epic. I mean, it's got 14 trumpets. So let's eliminate the idea of it being a tiny little symphony. It's built on the grandest possible scale. But there's a guy whose personality was so strong and his music was so quirky and so different from anything anybody else was writing, ever, or ever wrote, or ever will write. And I was just browsing through the record shop, looking through the Deutsche Grammophones back in the days when record stores kept records organized by catalog number. So you would go through an entire label and see what they had. And there was Raphael Kubelik with the Bavarian Radio Symphony Orchestra doing Sinfonietta and Taras Bulba. Well, I knew what a Taras Bulba was from the movie, with Yul Brynner and Tony Curtis, with a fabulous score by Franz Waxman, by the way. But Janáček, I had no idea who he was. I had no idea what his music sounded like. So I asked my buddy at the record store, I said, what is this? He said, listen to that. Do it. I was in college, and I took it home, and I put it on, and I played it so often, I smoothed its grooves to nothingness and had to buy 2 more copies just to make sure. It was unbelievable. So there you go. 5 musical discoveries that blew my mind. I'd like to know the 5 musical discoveries that blew your mind. Give me a list and keep on listening. Thanks for joining me, friends. Take care.